Ole Miss takes its swing at history against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, and these Lane Kiffin rumors, they threaten it all. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast pregame show. We're going to bring in Mike Huesmann and talk all about it.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. Listen, we're going to talk with Mike Huesmann about this Egg Bowl and kind of leading up there. Antonio Kite is out for this game, so it's going to be a big game for Cedric Beavers and Chris Graves. We're going to talk about Lane Kiffin rumors. We're going to take your comments as well. If you comment on this video, please put where you're commenting from. We always do that in the third segment. It is yours, so take advantage of that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download that app today, and thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is available on the #1 local podcast network in America, sports podcast network in America. And that is all because of you. So, Mike, this is a really interesting game because history truly awaits Ole Miss by winning this game. First season to win 11 games. You're at a minimum going to host a college football playoff game. It just appears like everything should be coming up Millhouse for every Ole Miss fan, but then on the other hand, all of these Lane Kiffin rumors that have persisted in the last 3 weeks has kind of, stunted that elation. This was supposed to be a coronation game. Now it's hey, let's get through this game. Hopefully we win the game, and then we can have nerve-wracking moments.
Yeah, I mean, no team in the country who still has their coach has went through the roller coaster you guys have in the last 3 weeks of will he, won't he, what's going to happen, nobody knowing. I mean, it's the most destabilizing thing that can happen to a team that otherwise has been very stable this year. So,
I tell people all the time, Mike, they are a missed tackle against Georgia on a 4th and 2 away from being undefeated, and they are getting absolutely no respect. They played the Citadel, beat them 49-0 and outgained them 600 yards to 100. They drop in the poll. They had a bye week. All of a sudden, Oregon beat USC, who's ranked like 20th. They dropped in the poll. Everybody has forgotten that Ole Miss has beaten Oklahoma. Everybody has forgotten that they absolutely curb stomped Tulane. The lack of respect that Ole Miss gets from the college football committee is ridiculous, and this Lane Kiffin thing is just making it worse.
Yeah, the Citadel one was the very surprising one for me. I actually understood the Oregon, one after beating USC. We're talking one spot, but I didn't understand how you're curb stomping a team, anybody, and you drop in the polls. It just didn't make sense to me. And I can't make sense of where that disrespect comes from. Is it because they think Kiffin's leaving? Is it because they think that's going to affect the play? Is it because they're not a traditional blue blood? Is it because they think those other teams would draw more on TV? Like I don't, it's because they're not watching them themselves. I don't know where it's coming from.
It's absolutely bizarre. We watched the college football playoff ranking, and like I said, Oregon moves up over Ole Miss, and they actually announced, they talked to the committee person who said, yeah, we were just waiting on Oregon to beat somebody of note so they can jump whoever's in front of them to put them in there. But it's like, what? You're telling me this was a pre-scheduled tweet, essentially?
Yeah. I mean, that's I was watching I didn't see that sound clip. When I was watching, I was actually doing Locked On Vandy with Corey that night. But yeah,
it's absolutely nuts.
Yeah. And I'm not debating Oregon being ranked higher. It's if that's your thought process, it's so flawed. If that's a reason for it, that you're just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, everybody made fun of automatic qualifiers before the season. Do you remember that? Everybody was going nuts about, oh, the Big Ten wants 4 automatic qualifiers and the SEC gets 4 automatic qualifiers. Oh, the Big Ten wants 24 teams in the college football playoff. That's ridiculous. That's too many teams. You've got to take it out of these committee members' hands because there are an innate biases. If the fact that the athletic directors that are sitting on this committee would punish Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin took to LSU, when if it was their coach, they would be absolutely freaking out, as hypocrisy at its absolute best, honestly, or worst, however you want to look at it. But let's go back to this Egg Bowl real quick.
I'll just say one other quick thing there. It also saves regional football in the regular season if we have automatic qualifiers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If the SEC picked their top 4 teams to go to the college football playoff, the SEC becomes the most important thing to every team. It's not the college football playoff, because you have to do whatever you're doing inside of the SEC to get there. And you wouldn't have conferences where USC and Rutgers are in the same conference, or Stanford and Wake Forest are in the same conference, because the regionality would be a good thing. And the irony of all of this thing is the Big Ten is the reason we're in this position. Them taking USC and Oregon and Washington, and those killed regionality of what's going on.
Yeah, the Texas-Oklahoma thing didn't help, but the Big Ten wanting USC and Oregon predated that.
Yeah. So it's absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's talk about this game real quick. This is a super important game, honestly, for both teams. We talked with Jaron Spohr of Locked On Mississippi State. He mentioned Jeff Lebby and his goal to get to a bowl game, and how Mississippi State started 4-0 and they struggled after that. They got the win at Arkansas. This is not a good football team on the offensive and defensive line. And I think we talked about this on SEC After Dark, the program I do with you on Thursday nights. I guess this week it was Wednesday. Yeah. But SEC teams that are deficient on the offensive and defensive line loses the game against the better team 95% of the time. Ole Miss would sincerely have to help Mississippi State, and all of the rivalry ghosts show up as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, when I was listening to you do your read for FanDuel, my 2 favorite plays in this game, the Kejuan Lacey over and the Trinidad Chambliss over on rushing, because this Mississippi State D-line is not quite as bad as Arkansas at stopping the run, but they're not much better. I mean, they're getting road graded by anybody with a competent O-line in front of them.
Yeah, and Chris Doering on, I guess he does SEC this morning. I was watching this because there is no college game day today. And he was talking, Mississippi State's defensive line is pretty good, but it's just one player being out of position and all of that. And they're like, can you fix that in a bye week? And I was like, no, they've done this the whole season. At this point, that is the defense. That is what you're going to see. And if Mississippi State brings their really good secondary, their secondary is pretty good, if we're going to be honest about it. But if you have to bring players down to deal with the run, that makes the secondary weaker, and all of those weapons that Ole Miss has, that's where the explosive plays happen. I think this game is going to be I think the one thing that you can count on in an Egg Bowl is the under. For whatever reason, you can have high-flying offenses on both sides and be 19-7 in the final score. It's the weirdest thing you could ever think of. And I think it has to do with the fact that you get to the Egg Bowl and these high-flying offenses that throw the ball around, and all of a sudden it's 45 degrees, it's windy, it's overcast. The weather starts playing a factor against these teams. However you want to look at it, I think it is going to be a low-scoring game. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game, but they're not going to play their best.
62.5. I'm not touching the over on that today in that game.
Yeah, that's probably the safest bet this week. Whenever you look at the betting line, it's at 7.5, which, that could be a decent line. That honestly could.
Yeah.
That could be a decent line, but I do think the over-under is it's a little bit too high. And what they're counting on is Blake Shapen being able to hit Brennan Thompson, and Mississippi State being able to score some points. That's what they're counting on in this game.
Yeah, because if they don't, we are going to see a second half that goes by in a flash, and it is run by the Rebels, who eat up clock, get first downs, and State just won't have the ball much. It'll just derive down to a numbers game and playing against the clock, and that'll be it. And then you have no chance to be over.
Yeah, the one thing Mississippi State has to look out for is Ole Miss getting 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, first. It's that game. We talked about the Georgia game being that for Ole Miss. This is what's on the table of going up against Mississippi State. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk with Mike more about this Egg Bowl leading up to kickoff. We are under 2 hours away from the Ole Miss Rebels and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Antonio Kite is out. We'll talk about that a little bit, but otherwise it's a relatively healthy game. I think Isaac Smith, who's a really good safety, he's questionable. He's a game time decision going up to kick off as well. But we'll come back and talk with Mike Huesmann right here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. You know, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you start the game or you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It helps keep every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets to use across the app when that first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel, sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. And also, Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's all coming in December. More details when we have it. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the entire world, I think. It's absolutely nuts. Thank you very much for that. All right, Mike. Antonio Kite, which is arguably Ole Miss's best defensive back, is out. That's problematic. It's going to be the Chris Graves show. It's going to be the Cedric Beavers show at cornerback for Ole Miss in the most important game, potentially in school history. I think it's the most important game. I've been saying that for weeks. This game could mean $70 to $100 million in revenue for the town of Oxford. There's a lot of stuff riding on the next 60 minutes of this football game. That's the path for Mississippi State, right? It's the explosive plays in the passing game.
Yes. Anthony Evans is good in the slot. He's the guy that, that nickel defender is going to be matched up against, but Brennan Thompson, Aiden Williams, both pretty good receivers, but Evans and Thompson are going to get the lion's share of those targets. And Traore, the tight end, will also get some. You have to make Mississippi State earn every yard they're getting. You can't let them get the chunk plays. You're maybe more conservative on defense than usual. Just play that shell, make them get first downs, make them drive it. Then hopefully at some point you can get a sack, get a negative play, force them into bad situations where they can't sustain drives and have to punt.
Yeah, I think that is the point. Just, and this isn't an insult to Mississippi State, but let Mississippi State beat themselves on offense.
And Devon Booth's out for the first half. He's a big part of that offense too.
So it's going to be Fluff Bothwell, who hasn't been the same since he got nicked up a little bit earlier on in the season.
He is not.
Great name, by the way.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. It's amazing. So I think a player that you need to watch. These are the players that, in my opinion, are the most important players for Ole Miss in this game, and I will tell you why. One, obviously, Trinidad Chambliss. You can't really have a good game with your quarterback having a bad game. He is going to always be one of the most important, if not the most important player on the field. Kejuan Lacey, he's a Doak Walker Award finalist, the first one that Ole Miss has ever had. This is a game that they're going to lean on him quite a bit potentially. Mississippi State's knowing the run's coming. Ole Miss is going to try and run the ball. Can Ole Miss do it? That is interesting. But this is the player that I think is the most important player for Ole Miss, and that is Suntarine Perkins, because it takes time for deep routes to appear. If those wide receivers and the quarterback are making plays, they need time. It's going to be up to Suntarine Perkins and Cam Franklin and Prince Willem Miellen. Those guys getting pressure on Blake Shapen or Kamario Taylor will be important for this football game, probably more so than most.
And I think the inverse of that, you talked about Lacey there, and we've talked about Mississippi State's inability to stop the run. For the Bulldogs, I think Calvin Dinkins is their most important player. Their nose tackle in the middle. If they are going to have any success stopping the run, he is going to need to eat up 2 blockers every time and let those linebackers and safety scrape and make tackles. He can't be a guy that is getting taken down by one guy.
Yeah, Patrick Kudus got the Kent Hall Trophy for the best offensive lineman in the state of Mississippi. That's going to be one of the players that he's going up against trying to take up 2 blockers. You're right, though. Getting double teams on the line is very important. Also, if you're commenting, the third segment is yours. I just asked that you put where you're commenting from so I can shout that out so I know what's happening as well.
And Kudos, great addition too. We talked back in the before he even committed last winter. We were talking about him as a guy that would help you out a lot, and he has.
Yes, and Mike Huesmann is an expert on the transfer portal. He is very good at coaching searches and things like that if that's necessary. Mike Huesmann's also going to be coming on with us and talking about those specific things whenever we launch the Everydayers Club next month. So, stand by for that. Some good stuff's coming, some value added. If you're willing to subscribe, we will appreciate that as well. Anyway, Mike, what is your thoughts on this game? How will it end up? And then how do you think the Lane Kiffin situation ends up?
So I've altered my thinking. I think Lane stays now. And it harkens me back to a few years ago when I started coming on with you, and there was the hub about he might go to Auburn. Like, no, I think he's staying. I was way more worried this time he was going to leave. In fact, if you'd have asked me this a week ago, I probably would have said he's gone. I think we've shifted into he stays now. As far as this game goes, I'm thinking something in the range of Ole Miss 28-10, 31-14. I think they cover, and I think in the end, they widen that lead in the second half by being able to run the ball and just wear State down. So relatively close for the first half, maybe even a 1-possession game at halftime. Then I think they put some distance in between themselves and State in the second half.
Yeah, you're not that far from me. This is what I'm predicting.
Yeah.
I picked Florida in that game. Yeah, great, a typo on that. But a 24-14 against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. I can't believe I had Florida on that. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That shows I was in a hurry this morning.
And maybe my wide score prediction shows that I'm not a Mississippi person, because I don't know if anybody deep in this rivalry would have a spread that big in a game. So.
Yeah, the spread I don't have a problem with. About once a decade, there's a blowout. I think in Hugh Freeze's last game at Ole Miss, Mississippi State beat Ole Miss in Oxford like 55-20. But in like 2008, Ole Miss beat Mississippi State 45-0, and Mississippi State had 36 yards of offense for the game. That was Sylvester Scroom's last game.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's interesting. So blowouts happen, but they don't happen very often. It's going to be a fight. And I expect Ole Miss to win. I don't expect Ole Miss to play their best. I expect Ole Miss to have a home playoff game coming up. Anyway, Mike, stand by. We got the comments for everybody coming up next, so you don't want to miss that. So stick around. All right. The holidays always feel a little bit easier when you know the perfect gift in Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks always delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because of their cyber sale. It's here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make the hosting or weeknight cooking even easier. Honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together, and you don't need to guess anyone's size. Save on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steak. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's promo code COLLEGE for an additional $35 off. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. All right. Let's get to your comments as well. Mike Huesmann joining from the After Dark Network. Should be pretty interesting. Should be a pretty fun game if we're going to be completely honest about it. So, Mary Ronalden says Lane has held us emotionally and mentally hostage. That is absolutely factual. And listen, make no mistakes. I will give everybody a preview of what I will say if Lane Kiffin stays. Lane Kiffin has work to do to repair this damage. It is going to become a more transactional relationship. Provide the wins, we'll provide the people. We will not put up with being talked to, and we will not be put up with being disrespected. So, all right. James York says, let's go. Give them hell from Vicksburg. Absolutely. Stephen, I need to point out how selfish Clark Lee and Elijah Drinkwitz are for not only signing extensions, but also announcing said extensions. They don't care for the players. Yeah,
I see what you did there, Josh. Yeah.
Yes. And people don't even realize that they just know that Vandy's always been bad, but they don't know what Vandy is necessarily. Yeah. If Vandy starts spending on football, they are the richest team in the conference that Texas is in. If they want to spend, they can spend. And them getting invested in what's going on, this may not be a one-trick Diego Pavia pony.
And the SEC people here who don't pay attention to the Big Ten much, Drinkwitz was in heavy for that Penn State job, so he had options and still chose to stay.
Yeah. And listen, I don't know why, like Florida and LSU were having campaigns against Elijah Drinkwitz.
Yes, makes no sense.
Makes no sense whatsoever. The man beat Ohio State in a Cotton Bowl and has won multiple 10-game years at Missouri.
I wonder if a lot of it is just optics. Like they don't think he looks the part physically in the way he talks. I think that's part of it.
That and it probably means they didn't get Lane if they hired him.
Maybe, yeah.
So, yeah, they turn it into a binary thing, and it's like, okay, but it is what it is. William Bronson says he's parked at Davis Wade. Just win, baby. The rest will take care of itself. Do not lay down. Finish. It's the biggest game, in my opinion, in Ole Miss football history, man. And there's going to be 25,000 Ole Miss fans there. Estimate it. I think it's probably going to be closer to 15, but 2025 is the goal, and we'll see what it looks like. I know that Ole Miss changed the color that the fans are supposed to wear to the game to powder blue because it stands out.
I like it. Good idea.
So, should be interesting about that. One rusty boy in Starkville got in from Dallas yesterday. For Thanksgiving, whatever happens, I just hope we win so we don't get dropped out of the playoffs. Yeah.
I don't think it happens anyway, but I get the worries.
Yeah, whenever you get dropped consistently and you're the only one that gets dropped, people are going to have those conspiracy theories. They are.
And I also think you guys are the only team who is in. Oklahoma would be the highest 2-loss team, unless you guys have 2. Then you're in ahead of Oklahoma, so I think that saves you a little bit.
Yeah, the Ole Miss winning the game against Oklahoma was absolutely massive.
Yeah,
absolutely huge. Brandon Martin says, "Good morning, Steve-O. Staffer of the year had to be Pete Golding. He's been on the road for the weeks recruiting through all of this. Pete Golding's been a machine for Ole Miss. He has been everything you've paid for and more. And I think he's the second highest assistant coach in all of college football behind, well, I guess
Jim Knowles.
a couple
Jim
more.
Knowles first. Yeah.
Yeah. For the time being, right
out of a
behind
job
Jim
soon.
Knowles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he could be the highest paid assistant ever, or not ever, but in college football in a couple of weeks, because you have to assume that Jim Knowles is going to end up somewhere.
Numbers 1 and 3 on that list might be out of a job because Blake Baker was the other one.
Okay, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Donna Taylor says, "I think we have this." I'm kind of there with you.
Yeah, me too.
Franklin McKinney says, "Yes, the home playoff economic impact is huge, way more than 100,000. Now I'm talking 100 million potentially. Yeah. It's like north of $70 million at some point for that impact. It would be absolutely massive for Oxford." Alan Hawkins says, "Not sure that Lane can humble himself and do the repair needed for him to stay." Yes, he can, because if Lane stays, it's just a win for coaching. Because at that point, I think Lane's out on the first thing smoking regardless. But what would that first thing smoking be? But you're trading wins for whatever. You're not going to give the benefit of the doubt at that point. You can't throw up a 7-5 after this just happened.
No.
Is that right?
In the stench that is all of this, deodorant is the ultimate, or winning is the ultimate deodorant here. If you win, it's going to be what it is, and you're going to move on. Yeah.
Mary Ronaldo says, "If Lane leaves, Keith and Lane both look like total crap." And I don't think so.
Keith does.
Yeah, Keith is fine. This whole situation is 100% of Lane's making, and everybody knows that. Now, I understand Ole Miss fans want to do this because Ole Miss is going to be in a bad situation, and this would be Lane putting Ole Miss in a bad situation, not Keith not doing what he needed to do to keep it from becoming a bad situation. I don't think anything is on Keith at this point. Now, in 3 weeks, that might be different.
But Keith had to be so reactive. He couldn't do anything, before or prematurely. It was a tough spot for him. Yeah.
Franklin McKinney also said that Pete Golding might be a good replacement. I don't think so. I think that Joe Judge would be higher than
I agree. Yeah.
Pete Golding on this list, but they would try and swing for a sitting head football coach before that Joe Judge got that job. Now, if Ole Miss won a couple of playoff games, let's say they get a home game against Alabama, that was the schedule that was released, and Ole Miss wins that game, and then they go down and beat Indiana in the Orange Bowl or something like that, Joe Judge is going to be the emotional favorite to get that job because you're in the Final Four at that point. And you're it's just all about winning football games at that point. You have Texas A&M for a chance to play for the national championship, and Joe Judge is leading the team. The emotions would kind of get over that as well. Elmer says, "I'm just focusing on the game and our players, not the Lane Kiffin drama. Ole Miss all the way." Hotty Toddy from Picayune, Mississippi. Yes, this is a massive, massive football game if we're going to be real.
You got to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Kenny McCord says, "Hotty Toddy, go Rebs." Cole Patrick says, "The move of the week went on. The more the week went on, I've become more confident he's staying. Rebs roll today in the cow pasture, 34-13 from Pearl, Mississippi." Listen, on Tuesday, a nuclear bomb went off on this whole thing, and nobody's talking about it. I don't know why nobody's talking about it, but the Wall Street Journal is putting out articles about Lane Kiffin being the most hated man in college football. There's stories on the Dan Patrick Show. Everybody's talking about how Lane is this villain, this heel, and if the E60 documentary was true at all, anything he said was remotely factual, that has to bother Lane. And that's the reason I think for this turnaround, because before Tuesday, he was gone. It was period. It was, everybody was just assuming that he was out the door. Now, not so much. And if Ole Miss wins today and Texas defeats Texas A&M, I don't think you're going to get a decision on Saturday, because unless he's staying at Ole Miss and he's already made up his mind to stay at Ole Miss, then you could get that decision, because at that point, he's going to wait and see if Auburn beats Alabama and Ole Miss ends up in the SEC championship game.
Yep.
And just logically look of what's going on. Now, we're still at the point where nobody knows what's going to happen. Everybody has opinions on what's going to happen. Everybody can speculate on what's going to happen. Nobody knows what is going to happen. Not even the closest of insiders. Probably Layla is not knowing at this point exactly how it's going to go on. So that indecision and that going on, that gets pushed aside because Ole Miss needs to win this game. So concentrate on winning the game and everything should work itself out, if we're going to be honest about it. All right. We're at 30 minutes already. If I didn't get to your comments and questions, you can tune in to the postgame show about 30 minutes after the final whistle of the Egg Bowl. You can turn in and check that out. You can check out more of Mike Huesmann's stuff on coaching, searching, the transfer portal, and all that stuff. It's going to happen sometime in December, so stay tuned about that. If you're in the Everydayers Club, you'll be able to read some interesting perspectives on all of that. Anyway, Mike, thank you very much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you later, man.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. All right, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, we'll see you after the game, if we're going to be completely honest. But anyway, enjoy it.